Give us what we want. It has become the imperative that no corporation, or any persuader, can afford to ignore. That's why modern political campaigns have also come to rely on an army of pollsters and market researchers, all taking the moment-by-moment pulse of the man on the street.
I got a rule, which is cab drivers and antique dealers know more about America than anybody else. And when the cab drivers feel a certain way, I know I need to listen.
No one has imported the techniques and philosophy of market research into politics more successfully than Frank Lunz. His suburban Washington mansion is a shrine to the public zeitgeist.
Everything in here has a relationship to pop culture. It's what people prioritize in their lives. The truth is, as much as we want to focus on politics, the American people would rather watch television. As much as we want to talk about substance, they'd rather listen to music. So I have to know what they're watching, I have to know what they're listening to, and I got to know why.
Lunz has built his career on a simple idea. It doesn't matter what you want to tell the public, it's about what they want to hear. His clients have been some of the most prominent Republican politicians of the last decade. There was the mayoral campaign for Rudolph Giuliani in 1993, his work for Silvio Berlusconi in Italy, and especially his collaboration with Newt Gingrich on the famous Contract with America, the document that ushered in the Republican Revolution in Congress. Lunz gives his clients one consistent piece of advice: heed the public will.
There's one technique that's more important than anything else, and that's the technique of listening. And that's basically what I do. I ask a lot of questions, and I know how to listen. If an electricity company stood up and said, we want to do it for your benefit, we want to do it for our benefit, we want to do it for everyone's benefit, and so we have a better approach to efficiency and to environmental cleanliness. Is that kind of language positive or negative to you? Positive. By show of hands.
Tonight, Lunz's client is not a candidate, but a Florida utility wanting to build public support for a change in how it's regulated on the environment.
I know that the public is very down on corporate America in general, and they're down on power companies. So what is the language? What is the information? What are the facts? What are the figures that would get Americans to say, you know what, my electricity company, it's okay? 21st century technology. 1, 2, 3, 4. 21st century approach.
Lunz's specialty is testing language, finding words that work.
Integrity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Reliability. There's the other one. If an electric company can demonstrate accountability, responsibility, and reliability when it comes to the environment, will that make you feel better about them?
Yes.
It's an art that even his political opponents grudgingly admire.
Frank Lunz doesn't do issues. He does language around issues. He figures out what words will best sell an issue. And he polls them, and he tests them, and he focus groups them, and he comes up issue by issue with how to talk about it and how not to talk about it.
If the language works,
right,
language works.
No, it's just amazing.
Lunz has sold his corporate and political clients the idea that a few carefully chosen words can make all the difference. But he's not just looking for any words. Lunz's quarry are those words that grab our guts and move us to act on an emotional level.
It's amazing that those two words,
Constantly.
almost everything that we do, come up at the top.
So why do you think that companies don't use them enough?
I don't know.
80% of our life is emotion, and only 20% is intellect. I am much more interested in how you feel than how you think. How you think is on the outside. How you feel is on the inside. So that's what I need to understand. You're going to use these to register whether you agree or disagree, whether you believe or disbelieve. The dials go from 0 to 100.
On one hand, you have wind, which has no fossil fuels associated with it.
To get at his subjects' gut feelings, Lunz has them register their moment-by-moment responses to a speech by a power company executive. Republicans are on the red line and Democrats on the green. Lunz is watching for both sides to meet in an emotional crescendo.
Change fuels, there would be a number of things that are available.
Climbing, changing fuels.
Phase out of older, less efficient plants, and they would be replaced.
Bingo, look, phasing out of older official plants. He's now up into the mid to upper 70s with that. You're replacing the bad with the good. It's almost like in with the good air, out with the bad. That might be an analogy that we might want to try instead of the automobile analogy. This is going to work. Watch. This will work.
Technology such as hydroelectric power, wind energy, geothermal energy, nuclear energy.
Check it. I told you. The words work. The words apply to the policy. This is how we're going to sell it.
California utilize output-based standards.
Look at this. Hold it. Stop. Stop.
By the end of his session, Lunz thinks he's found the language his client can use to create a groundswell of public support.
And I'll be able to walk to this electricity company on Monday and be able to say to them, your policy makes sense, and here's the language to explain it. That was the eureka moment. When I watched people nod their heads, I watched them look to each other, and they were willing at this point to fight for this position.
But watching Lunz work, I couldn't help wondering, do the words he's found help the public see the issue more clearly, or do they disguise it? Is Lunz listening to us so his clients can give us what we want, or so we can figure out how to make us want what they have to sell?
You're ducking the question. You're ducking the reality test.
This is a guy who is merchandising ideas and merchandising a movement and merchandising a political party. And in many instances, the words that he says are the ones that resonate, are ones that obscure to some extent the issue.
The right name makes the policy sell better. It's just like putting a name on a bar of soap or any other commercial product. It matters what you name things.
Journalist Nicholas Lemon wrote a profile of Lunz in the New Yorker magazine called The Word Lab. He described how Lunz once turned public opinion simply by replacing the name estate tax with the more emotionally charged death tax.
As far as I can tell, in the entire developed world, every single country had an estate tax, and it was completely uncontroversial all over the world. And it is clearly the case that this construction, this rhetorical construction of calling it the death tax, took it from the realm of something everybody was for and in a just unquestioned way into something that most people seem to be against and is on its way to being eliminated.
Look, for years, political people and lawyers, who, by the way, are the worst communicators, used the phrase estate tax. And for years, they couldn't eliminate it, but the public wouldn't support it because the word estate sounds wealthy. Someone like me comes around and realizes that it's not an estate tax, it's a death tax, because you're taxed at death. And suddenly, something that isn't viable achieves the support of 75% of the American people. It's the same tax, but nobody really knows what an estate is. But they certainly know what it means to be taxed when you die. I'd argue that is a clarification. That's not an obfuscation.
Lunz has admonished Republican politicians to talk about tax relief instead of tax cuts, and to replace the war in Iraq with the war on terror. He once told his party to speak of climate change, not global warming.
What is the difference? It is climate change. Some people call it global warming, some people call it climate change. What is the difference?
It apparently made enough difference to Republicans that they began to use climate change almost exclusively.
Cause climate change.
The President's Global Climate Change Initiative.
Climate change research.
And we must address the issue of global climate change.
I don't argue with you that words can sometimes be used to confuse, but it's up to the practitioners of this study of language to apply them for good and not for evil. It is just like fire. Fire can heat your house or burn it down.
I'm optimistic about America because I believe in the people of America.
Still, the rise of consultants like Lunz has led to an increase in the emotionality of American political campaigns.
We are a country of the future. We're a country of optimists. We're the can-do people.
More and more, electioneering, particularly political advertising, has left behind facts for visceral appeals.
If you're looking for an example of how advertising is a really corrosive force in society, I advise you to look away from consumer product advertising and just look at political advertising, because it's a stain on our democracy. You know, you're selling soup or soap or oatmeal. One thing you basically have to do is tell the truth. Not the eternal truth, but the factual truth. So, by and large, advertising is essentially truthful, except political advertising, which, year after year, and it gets worse every year, is just the artful assembling of nominal facts into hideous, outrageous lies.